that she was very difficult child as well, and so difficult that they were, like, regularly trying to ship her off to boarding school and, like, try to get her into go to a convent just so the nuns would take care of her because she was so difficult. And Zaley was like, "I don't know, like, I can't do anything, like, maybe the nuns can help her because I can't." And so, that's it's honestly so comforting in a way to hear those stories of saints where it's like, because I think sometimes we think, "Oh, like, they did it so perfectly," and, yeah, all her kids did become nuns, but there was trouble along the way too, and there was real life struggle and tantrums, and, so it's really comforting to hear those real life stories, and that's what the saints are for, is they give us this humanity of, like, they were not perfect, they were broken, and they, still made it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Saintly Sidekicks. With us today is Raquel Rose, who is the founder and owner of the Little Rose Shop. And if you haven't heard of it, it's an extremely successful Catholic business that she started many years ago, and she has just grown and grown and grown. She now has a team behind her, and they make all kinds of products from like soft, interactive books for kids to have during Mass. They have blankets, they have mugs, they have apparel, so many. Oh, St. Dolls, love her St. Dolls. Everything is extremely high quality, and she clearly just knows what she's doing business wise because everything from start to finish is just really beautifully done. And the Saints are incorporated through so much of her products. So we're just so excited to have you here, Raquel. And for those who don't know you, would you introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, oh my gosh, thank you, such a warm welcome. So I am Raquel, yes, owner of the Little Rose Shop, and I always tell people I'm like an accidental entrepreneur. I definitely did not think that that was what I was going to be doing, but as many of us discover in our journeys, God has different plans and surprises for us, and now I see, looking back, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, and it's I'm using my talents to the best that I can, and it's really amazing. So, the whole reason I started the Little Rose Shop is actually because I became a single mom in college. I found myself pregnant at age 21, and that sparked a huge reconversion to the faith in my life. I had a really, significant and powerful moment in front of the Eucharist, where I saw Jesus for the first time and, like, knew that he was real, and so that moment changed my life, and I was very convicted to take ownership of the faith. Before, I probably was more of, like, a Sunday Catholic, like, I wasn't really taking much ownership of it, not incorporating it into my daily life, and after that moment in front of the Eucharist, I felt very convicted to do that, and also becoming a young single mom, I felt very convicted to figure out how I could really bring it into my life with my daughter now becoming a mother and being responsible for another human and soul. And so basically, I just started creating things that I really needed, to help my spiritual life. Basically, as a young single mom still trying to graduate college, very sleep deprived with a new baby, I kind of had this idea in my head that in order to, like, you know, grow in the faith and become this good Catholic, I needed to be, like, going to daily mass and going to adoration and reading these really intense, spiritual books, and I just, like, did not have that capacity at that exact moment in my life, and so I was like, "I just need to, like, remember to pray in the middle of the night when I'm nursing my crying baby, or to pray when I'm reaching for my cup of coffee in the morning, totally, like, exhausted and trying to figure out how I'm gonna survive this day." And so I basically started kind of creating these visual reminders via prayer blankets, prayer mugs, and then I also started creating little toys for my daughter to start learning about the faith at her level. And it was more just for me, and, um, people at church started asking, like, they would see these things and ask, "Where did you get that?" And I said, "Oh, I designed it or I made it," and they would ask if they could buy one, and so I was like, "Oh, sure, I guess I could." start selling a few of these on the side. And so for a long time, it was this side hobby of making things, and I just saw that it was really resonating with a bunch of other Catholic women and moms who just wanted these little visual reminders to encounter God in those normal moments throughout the day. Um, and so that's really how it started, and then it eventually grew and grew so much that I, quit my job to give it a chance, and it has just exploded ever since, and God has just been blessing it, and like you mentioned, we have a team now, and this is my full-time job now, and, I love it, it's amazing, yeah, and, like I said, I never thought that this was what God had in store for me, but, it was all from that moment in front of the Eucharist where I had the courage to choose life and become a young single mom, and then that just, like, took me down this whole path, which has been so amazing to see, you know, basically God creating so much beauty from it really was a moment of brokenness for me, but he made it beautiful. So,
I think people are inspired by that for sure, and your willingness to share that story too. And has your daughter like kind of grown with you with the shop and like seen? Do you get to experience it with her? Does she watch you create things and stuff at home?
yes, yeah, she's the inspiration for sure. I That's why I called it the Little Rose Shop actually, because her middle name is Rose. My middle name is actually Rose as well, but, I also love the analogy that roses are this symbol of love, and they also come from a thorn bush, and so it's just another consolation from God that he makes our messiness, very beautiful, and so I called it the Little Rose Shop because she's like my little rose, and then, another sidebar of the shop name is Saint Therese of Lisieux was my confirmation saint, and she's kinda just been this little, patron saint of the shop as well because really what we try to do is create little things to help bring faith into everyday life, like I mentioned, prayer blankets that you can, like, in the moment when you're sleep deprived, nursing your baby in the middle of the night, you can see this reminder that this can still be a holy moment and a sanctifying moment, and it's just the little things in your daily life can still be so holy, and that's, like, Saint Teresa's MO and, like, the little way, and so she's also kind of a part of the name. But definitely my daughter is the biggest inspiration for it, and as she's grown, it's just it keeps inspiring me because I see different ways I want to bring the faith to her different, age or stage of development. And now I have more children too, and so all my children, they just inspire me so much of, like, what they're interested in and how I can kind of still bring God into what they're interested in, whether it's the type of toys that they're playing with, how can I create you mentioned the Saint dolls because, my boys love monster trucks and Paw Patrol and, like, smashing things, and so creating, we've created a pullback Pope-mobile car that they can still like, the Pope-mobile can also participate in the monster truck rallies and, just silly little things like that, but are actually so special and can bring, faith in a really fun and tangible way to families and kids. So, they're all such huge inspirations for me, and yeah, it's endless, the ideas that they give me for the shop.
And I really feel like that is so new, especially like to our generation and our kids' generation. Cause I know when my mom was growing up, and even when I was growing up, there weren't things like that. There weren't saint dolls. There
Right.
weren't, things that, like you said, are in everyday life. So it can really be incorporated. And I do think it's a huge blessing for families because it is so easy to just not know how to incorporate the faith when you're raising kids. And
Mhm.
especially like I homeschool. So trying to not like to do it in a fun way, so that it's not like, okay, let's sit down and talk about, Jesus for 20 minutes. It's like you said, play with a Pope mobile car that inspires them to ask questions,
Yeah.
or even like I'll hear my kids playing with their Saint dolls and their toys, and some of the things that they're coming up with in their imagination. It's just like it never would have happened if it weren't for those toys. So it's just I love that you're creating it, and I love that it's becoming this big business for you guys and that it's so successful because I think that speaks to what's behind it. And hopefully to our culture right now is just like
Yeah.
hungry for it, especially the Catholic culture. They just want to incorporate these things for
Mhm.
their families. And so for you, when did the saints, like you said, you had Saint Therese as your confirmation saint. So,
Mhm.
but were the saints like a big part of your kind of teenage years, or did that come later when you got a little bit older?
Yeah, I think, learning more about them definitely came as I got older. Obviously, like, when you go through confirmation, you're, like, have to kind of figure out a saint, and I wouldn't say I, like, had a huge reason when I was just, a 7th or 8th grader as to why I chose Saint Therese. Like, I couldn't really tell you why I chose her, but now I'm, like, looking back, I'm like, it maybe wasn't me choosing her, maybe it was Saint Therese choosing me, and and now I see, like, oh my gosh, she's so amazing, and someone who has been praying for me for sure and guiding me even when I didn't know it as, like, whatever, an 8th grader when I was choosing her per se, but yeah, as I've gotten older and, specifically when I became that young mom and I suddenly was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to, like, learn about my faith, embrace it, like, figure out how I can actually bring it into daily life and not have it just be this thing that you set on the shelf for Sundays." And so I did start learning more about the saints and got really inspired by their stories, and that's why I started making these saint dolls, mostly because I wanted my daughter to, like, play with them when she was, playing with her, other stuffed animals and having the tea parties. I was like, "How cute would it be if, like, Saint Therese is coming to the tea party and, you know, Saint whoever." Um, and so as I was learning about the saints, I would make more and more saint dolls, and I used to in the very early stages of my business, I used to offer custom saint dolls as orders, because that's, everybody kind of has their saint that they want. And so when an order would come in for a custom saint that I hadn't heard of, I would have to, research and figure out, okay, how am I going to make sure this doll looks like this saint or represents, the things about them. And so that really expanded my knowledge. The business did, because I was having these customers want to order different saints that I'd never heard of. And so then I started learning more and more and more. And it was so fun. And I started designing little saint squishies, and we have like a whole basket filled with them. And I actually have a funny story about when I learned about Saint Maximilian Kolbe and I designed this doll of him. And, he has like this circle glasses and kind of this specific hairline, at least in the in the images you see. And so I made him and I was explaining him to my daughter, and then I like sent him off to the customer or whatever. And we're out and about. I don't even remember where we were, but she saw this man that had similar features and had the glasses, and she's like, "Mom, it's Saint Maximilian Kolbe." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And then I saw the man and I was like, "Oh, he actually kind of resembles this resembles him." And it was just and that was, like, such a fun moment because I was like, "Wow, she's actually, picking up on some of these things." And so it was just kind of confirmation, like, making the saints and making these products that I've designed and bringing them into their everyday life, like, they're picking up on things and it's becoming more familiar to them, um, and, the thing with kids and their whatever, they kinda get obsessed with certain characters or, like, Disney characters or whatever. And, like, if you can introduce the saints to them, I think what's really cool about that is the saints are real, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of these other characters that they, love and play with or whatever, they're not real. They're fun for the kids, but if you can kinda infuse some saints, it's like, these are actually real people, and these are real heroes that you can actually, ask for them to pray for you, and they can actually be with you for the rest of your life when you outgrow, Paw Patrol and
Right.
everything. So that's kind of been, part of the mission of some of the things that we create is just bringing them into an accessible and relatable way for kids to start learning, right at their level.
I like what you said about Saint Therese choosing you. And
Yeah.
I think that really, it's so funny because the saints really do that. And my daughter, we're a part of a Catholic parish that they confirm and they do all the sacraments at once. So confession, confirmation, first communion, all of those happen at the same time. And so it happens when they're like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And so she just had that happen. And I kept thinking, isn't this sort of young for her to choose a saint for the rest of her life? And I was feeling all this pressure of like, man, I hope that she doesn't regret later that, she picked someone that she's not like feeling it with. And even like you said, you kind of just picked Saint Therese. I did the same thing. I just picked my saint, not really like I picked her because at the time I wanted to be, and I really was like serious about dance. I was like a ballerina and it was my whole life at the time. And this person on Saint Ozana of Mantua, she had the stigmata and she talked about pains in her feet. And I was like, oh, well, that would be perfect for me. And of course, it's not a part of my life at all anymore. But she totally picked me. And it only was recently that I realized it. And then same thing with my daughter. Her saint, it was so weird. She had three in mind. It was Bernadette, Our Lady, no, not Catherine of Labouré, and Mary Magdalene that she was deciding between. And then one day we were listening to those Saints Alive podcasts. I don't know if you've heard them.
Yeah.
They're so good. And we were listening to one about Margaret Mary, who the Sacred Heart was revealed to.
Okay.
Anyway, and we're in the middle of the episode. Not much has happened yet. And she just looks at me and she's like, this is who I'm going to pick. And my daughter's very like intuitive and she's just kind of an old soul. So I didn't really question it. I was like, okay, like, if that's what you're feeling called to, I guess we'll just roll with this. I was like, let's give it a day, maybe come back to it. And we like listened to the rest of the episode. And the rest of the episode was like my daughter. It was like they were just describing my
Wow.
daughter. And I remember seeing them like, oh my gosh. Like the Lord spoke. Like I was just freaking out because she
Yeah.
really did. She just had this moment. She's like, that's who I'm gonna pick. And
Mhm.
like it keeps like showing itself because my patron saint that I picked has also a connection to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, as does my daughter. So like all these little things just keep
Yeah.
adding up and like they really do pick us. And but I
Mhm.
think like you said, having knowledge of them is what makes us realize that, you
Yeah.
know? So what made you think that St. Therese picked you? Or maybe it was a couple of things or
Well, I think just what I ended up wanting to create the most in my shop were, like, those little reminders. Like I said, like, the prayer mug, because it's, like it's just a little nod to remembering, oh, like, when you're grabbing your cup of coffee and, like, rushing out the door or whatever it is, that's still a little moment that you could pray. And so with Saint Therese in her little way, and it's all about doing the small things and kind of the hidden, unseen things and offering up those moments to God. And it doesn't have to be this big thing. It can be those little moments. I just felt really drawn to that. And that's basically what I was ending up creating is just these little reminders. So that way I could throughout my day remember like, "Oh, this is a holy moment. This is a holy moment." Um, and then I didn't really have any I don't even remember when I learned more about Saint Zaley, who is Saint Teresa's mom, and that she was a business owner, a creative business owner, a lace maker. And I was like, "What?" I was like, "That's awesome because that's now what I'm doing. Like I'm a creative business owner." And so then I started learning more about Saint Zaley, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this whole family is like they're my people." Like, I had no idea. Um, and so, yeah, it was just like yeah, basically what I ended up being passionate about and loving to do, it was like, "Oh, that's what Saint Therese teaches." And then I find out her mom, is like does the like a similar career to what I'm doing. And
yeah.
so, yeah, it was just amazing. Um Yeah, I feel a huge connection with them, obviously with St. Zelie since I'm a creative business owner, but then, like, I've already talked about, like, St. Therese in her little way, but because she was like a child and was so, um had so much, like, awareness of God and, wisdom at such a young age, and I always feel drawn to creating these children's items, to, like, just play on like, children can I think sometimes parents maybe don't know how to bring up more intense topics of the faith with their kids because they feel like it's so like, the Catholic faith really is dense, like, you can go pretty, like, deep with it, and sometimes I feel like parents might feel like, "Oh, that's like an overwhelming topic. Like, how can I possibly explain this to a child?" But really, children can grasp so much. And it's not like you have to water down the faith by any means. You just have to kind of make it like, you just kind of have to show it to them at their level. And so that's what I try to do. And really, kids, they're so wise and they're like sponges and they just absorb so much. And they honestly, a lot of times, have more faith than adults. Like, it's easier for them to have faith.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think, yeah, just Saint Zelie and Saint Therese um, have just played such a big role in inspiring me and guiding me and and praying for me with this business. And I just see so many connections. It's amazing.
I love that correlation of what you found between her little way and kind of how you incorporate the little reminders in the products that you have. And I really feel like, especially moms today, because there's just so much isolation that goes on.
Mhm.
Uh, just because our communities are so different. Kids used to play out in the neighborhood, and the moms would sit and chat, and now that just doesn't really happen anymore. And I feel like that reminder that the mom isn't alone, that there is someone else that has been through this and they did it successfully. I really, I obviously really love Saint Zaley as well, and their whole family. That was something that kind of shifted the perspective of motherhood for me as well, where up until I learned about her, I thought that a mom that did anything except take care of her kids was being selfish, which is not like that's wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I got that idea from because my mom never put that in my head. So I really don't know where it came from, but it just was this like, I have to, everything has to be focused on my kids. And if I can't do it all, then I'm a bad mom. And then I was like, wait, she's a saint. Her daughter's a saint. All of her daughters became nuns, and some of them are up for canonization as well. Like, clearly she was doing something right. And her
Yes.
husband was canonized with her, so maybe it's okay to work
Yeah.
and be with so it's just like this light bulb moment for me of, wow, motherhood looks different for everybody,
Mhm.
and that's a good thing, and some moms don't work, and that doesn't mean they're bad moms either, but, I mean, all moms work, and that's something people have been saying to me the more that
Mhm.
I chat about it. Every mom does work, it just looks different,
Right.
and obviously, kids should be the number one priority, and I think you know them by their fruits.
Mhm.
You know if that's the fact or it's not because everyone's going to be dysfunctional. And then if you're seeing that, okay, now I can correct a little bit
Mhm.
and prioritize again. Which I really admire the fact that you have a team and that you
Yeah.
recognize that need of
Mhm.
okay, this business is growing and
Mhm.
I'm gonna let other people help me out with that. So, how did that process kind of go about? When did you realize you needed to ask for some more help?
Yeah, I was getting to a point in business where it was like so overwhelming. It was I feel like I was becoming more stressed, like, snapping at my kids more. And then my mom was like, you should call your Uncle Dave. Shout out to my Uncle Dave. I'll have to let him know that I mentioned him. Um, because he like was pretty high up in business. And I called him and explained like, I'm not like there's a lot of demand, like it's just growing and I'm just like can't keep up. And he was like, "Well, you should like hire someone." And I don't know why I never like it didn't really cross my mind that I would be able to hire someone. And, at first you're like, "Well, is it going to be worth it?" Like that like it feels expensive to hire someone. But I ended up hiring, a high school girl to come over after school, and she would just help me, like, cut things because I, like, needed fabric cut, and I was like, like, someone I can surely show someone to cut things." And she's, like, this responsible high school girl, and she came over and she just, like, put her earbuds in and she would cut stuff for me. And it, like, opened my eyes so much because when she was doing that, I could do something else, and it was like I got twice as much done. And so all of a sudden it all clicked. I was like, "Oh, this, like, makes so much sense." Like, it's actually not expensive to hire someone. It's actually, like, it is gonna make it so that way I can have my sanity back, and now the business is growing and we're actually more profitable and making more money. And so, of course, this like everything just clicked. And so then I was like, "Oh my goodness. What am I doing? I need to like hire more people." I mean, it's not like I hired everyone the next day, but it also opened my eyes that when you I think a lot of like solopreneurs or people that are starting businesses and they're running it by themselves, you start to get in the weeds of things that you're not like gifted in and you're not the expert in. And then it's like very draining. And I think that's what was happening to me as I was getting into these parts of running a business that I actually wasn't very good at. And I'm very gifted at like kind of the creative inspiration and like developing these new ideas and products. Um, but there's certain things that come with business that was like dragging me down and not bringing out the best version of myself. But there's other people where that is their gift and their skill. And so it also became this realization of like, oh, I'm actually stewarding the business well by hiring someone who's really gifted in this area so I can do what I'm really gifted in. And then we are like really complementing each other. And then everything's like flourishing even more. And so, basically that first hire with the high school girl who she just wanted, a low maintenance job, make a little extra money that was flexible that she could do on the way home from school, so it was perfect gift for her, like, she was happy, and then I was freed up from cutting things to, like, actually developing more ideas for products, and it was really beautiful, and so then that kinda snowballed and just really opened my eyes that, yeah, with growth, like, you have to really kinda discern, am I using my skills in the best way to steward this business, and or am I not? And maybe that's a moment where either you do scale down if that's what you're discerning, or you scale up by hiring someone who's really gifted in that area that you're kind of struggling with. And so that's basically what has happened, and now I have this amazing team, and it's really beautiful because everyone is in these roles that are really well suited for them, where they're thriving, and then I'm freed up to really be in the role that I feel like God's calling me to be in, and it's just beautiful how it all works together that way.
That is so funny because it reminds me about St. Zaley as well, because her business was doing so well that I think it was her husband, Lewis, who finally was
Yeah.
like, "You need to hire somebody to help you with the kids so that you can actually focus
Mhm.
on the work that you're doing." And she was resistant to it at first, but then it allowed her to actually have some humanity again because she was
Yeah.
just so sleep deprived and so exhausted. And it's
And
funny
then
because,
he also quit his job to
yeah,
support her in the business, and I think what I learned just recently actually is that, like, she did feel conflicted about it, but she did feel like ultimately she needed to keep scaling this business and making it successful, and thank goodness she did because she died she died when I think Saint Therese was 4 years old,
yeah,
um, and so she died with young kids, but her business was so successful that the profit from it supported their family to continue on without, without huge tragedy
yeah.
after obviously, it was a tragedy that she died, but from a financial perspective, they were actually still very much okay for the rest of Saint Therese's life to continue on because of how well she built that business financially, so
That's incredible. What a great gift. And just for her, I don't know. I love that humility of St. Louis Martin because, especially in that time period,
yeah.
to allow the woman to be the sole provider for the family was probably a really big deal.
Mhm.
And to sort of step let her do that and then also support her mothering in that way of, we're going to allow this to be a good thing so that so that you can feel filled up in the ways that you need to be. And
Yeah.
obviously no situation is perfect, but I don't know. I just love that they did that, that they made that decision. I love that you made that decision as well. And it is funny, like, cuz you said it didn't even occur to you, "Oh, I can hire some help," or, it feels
Mm.
expensive or you feel guilty for doing it. But then once you do it, it's like, "Wow, this was a gift not just for me,
Right.
but for
Mhm.
all of these people that are now a part of this team, like, they get to be a part of this, they get to fill their families with this mission that you have, and
Yes.
I
Mhm.
really admire that. I think that's wonderful. And so how old is your daughter now?
She just turned 13.
Oh my gosh.
I
Okay.
know,
So
from a teenager. It's a new season for me.
That is a huge new season. Okay, and then your boys, like, what's your youngest right now?
He's just about to turn 2, not
He's
quite
about
2
to turn
yet.
2. Okay,
Mhm.
and so you have 4, you have a 13-year-old and a 2-year-old. Okay, so that's a wide
Mhm.
spectrum for
Yes.
sure. So, like, how is it viewing that from your viewpoint of, like, mom, businesswoman? Like, do you and your daughter, like, do you feel like because of the business, you guys have more of a deep connection together with the faith? Or now that she's kind of getting to the teen years, is it like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Or what does it look like right now? I have an 8-year-old daughter, so I'm more asking for myself of like, okay, like what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's definitely both. Like, um, I ask her questions all the time because, right now, her being a teenager, I'm looking for resources out there for her and, there's not a ton. And so
Mhm.
I'm asking her like what would be helpful, like do you and I together wanna, like, design a journal or or something like that? So, she's very much involved in my process, and kind of asking her, like, what is cool or what she would like, what her, perspective and views are. Um, but obviously at this, stage of development, they're kind of becoming more independent, they're having more questions, they're maybe not as forthcoming to asking the questions to their parents, which I knew because by the way, before I actually did the Little Rose Shop full time, you guys know I was a single mom, but I did finish college and then I did go to graduate school and became a licensed school counselor. And I was a middle school counselor for 5 years. And so that also I, like, try to incorporate into what I'm doing because I've learned, like, just different techniques and strategies on, like, kids' engagement and, like, things that, that's why so many of my products are very interactive is because learn by doing and having more interaction. But then also trying to support families and how can they, like, engage their child through play or through these interactive books, blah, blah, blah. But, so I known, like, "Oh, no, like, middle school is coming. We're in here." And I, like, have experience with other kids when I was a middle school counselor in public school, by the way. But everything, when it's your own kid, obviously, it's like, "Oh my goodness, how do I do this?" I feel like I feel clueless, you know? So it's I was like, I knew it was coming, but now that it's my kid, I'm like, "Oh my gosh," you question things, of course. And you just pray for them, and you pray for them, and you hope for them to have good friends, and I think, finding community with other moms who have similar values is one of the best things you can do because then you can, confide in them and talk to them about, you can share back and forth what's working, um, different ideas, and yeah, we're all we're all on this journey of parenting, and it is, a wild ride to say the least, like, you never know. And then every child is different, and so yeah.
It's so true. Every child is different. Our our youngest who just turned 2, so I have a 2-year-old as well. And
Mhm,
he's our 3rd, and he's been like the most I don't know. So he's the it's funny. Anyway, I won't get into all the details of that, but he is our most energetic tantrum throwing child that we've ever had.
mhm,
And I'm just like, what is going on? How do
mhm.
I do this? And I can't tell you how comforting it is that St. Therese was like that. Like
Yeah,
knowing that when she was young, because even like I think St. Zaley wrote a letter where she said something to basically, she just like throws herself on the floor and cries if something goes the way she doesn't expect.
mhm.
And that is this boy that we have. It's just, like, no, we actually can't play in this toilet. That's gross. But it's like the end of the world for him. And he's on the floor screaming, and it's like a 15-minute ordeal. And I do think he just is all boy and just so much energy. And just to know, like, okay, I can shape this. This is
Mhm.
one day this stubbornness will be a really
Yeah,
great quality. But then with the older children, like the teenagers and the 8-year-old, it's just a whole different realm of, okay, now, like you said, you kind of have to step back a little bit
mhm.
and and let go a little bit more in terms of how much instruction you give, which I feel like that is almost more scary of
Yeah.
just like, and again, it's like what you said, praying for them and just trusting that God is going to help them along their journey. And just like with you, where you kind of came to a place of brokenness, but then that became this beautiful thing that
Mhm.
shaped you and then became this even more beautiful thing that's influencing all kinds of people all over the world. So I don't know. I guess as a parent, that's what I try and remember that, like, even if they have a St. Augustine kind
Right.
of life for a little while,
Uh,
that even that, it's okay. Like,
yeah.
and kind of a St. Monica mentality of, I just, that it's not like, I guess I sort of react like, oh, it's my fault. Like, I must have done something wrong if they don't do this well or if they went this way, but that it's not, and that
Mhm.
we only do the best that we can, and then we have to let them figure it out in the
Yeah.
same way that you and I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over
Yeah, they
so
have
many.
their free will too, and that's part of God's design is that, he wants all of us to choose him at the end of the day and not be forced and cajoled along, like, we're gonna come to a decision ourselves. And yeah, that's probably one of the hardest parts of parenting is knowing, "Oh, yeah, my kid does have free will too, and
Yeah.
I can do what I can do," and then they're still gonna have choices, as they get older. Um, and yeah, so we're getting into that stage of parenting. But yeah, you mentioned, how Saint Therese did that, and then I don't know if you know much about, Leonie. I'm not sure if I say her name right, but yeah,
Yeah.
Therese's sister. I had read that she was very difficult child as well, and so difficult that they were, like, regularly trying to ship her off to boarding school and, like, try to get her into go to a convent just so the nuns would take care of her because she was so difficult. And Zaley was like, "I don't know, like, I can't do anything, like, maybe the nuns can help her because I can't." And so, it's honestly so comforting in a way to hear those stories of saints where it's like, because I think sometimes we think, "Oh, like, they did it so perfectly," and, yeah, all her kids did become nuns, but there was trouble along the way too, and there was real life struggle and tantrums, and, so it's really comforting to hear those real life stories, and that's what the saints are for, is they give us this humanity of, like, they were not perfect, they were broken, and they, still made it. And so much hope from that.
That is my favorite thing about them for sure, the Saints, and that was one of the things that connected me with Saint and Zaley was all of her broken moments. So when she had the child loss and
Yes.
when she had the nursing issues, so it was like those are things that I've experienced as well. We've had miscarriages, and then I'm not able to nurse my kids for whatever we still don't understand, but it's just
Mhm,
like it hurts them. It's very bizarre. But I
mhm.
remember reading that. I mean, like I've never met anyone else that has dealt with this where you can't, and she had to hire wet nurses and the babies
Yeah,
had to live in a different home so that they could be fed, and she had to go walk and visit them. And I just remember when I read that, like, okay, if she can do that, then
yeah,
I can feed my baby formula and stop crying about it. So it's
yeah,
just like what you're saying, it is their brokenness that I think is so helpful. And I really admire how you conduct your business in that way. I feel like it, and I'm not on Instagram anymore, but when I was, and I would follow you and see your posts, like you're very human in the way that you present it. And even on your website, you have an interview that you did with the Catholic Faith Network, I think it was,
yeah,
and your
mhm.
son came
Oh,
in
yeah,
and sat on your. You have no idea what that meant to me. I was like, oh my gosh, she was so calm when that happened and just like rolled with it. And it was this beautiful, just working mom moment that happened on screen. Like you were
yeah.
so wonderful with him. Like I feel like I would have been freaking out. Like, oh, what do I do? Like
Well, inside, I was freaking out a little bit. Well, because they wanted this interview super early in the morning because they're on Eastern time and I'm in Mountain Time, which nobody even, like, hardly knows what Mountain Time is. It's not even, like, a shown time on TV, like, everyone's like, "What's Mountain Time?" But, So it was, like, really early for me to do the interview before I could get any help, and so I, like, gave him a sucker at, like it was, like, 6:30 in the morning. I was like, "Please stay behind the bed, buddy." Like, I was, like, trying to bribe him, and then nope, he came right out, and I was like, "It's fine." Like
You did so well. Seriously, you did so well. And it was so cool. Like it was like it I'm as a mom, like looking at your shop and like considering whether or not to put like it made me want to buy everything. Like, oh my God,
Oh,
this person is not just like running a business, like this is her family and this is like a part of it. And anyway, it was really, really cool. You did a fabulous job.
well, that's really good to hear, because I do remember, like, a moment of panic, and I was,
I can
like,
imagine.
sweating, like, "Oh, no."
You could not tell at
He
all.
doesn't, like, make any fart jokes on live TV because with 3 boys, there's a lot of fart talk, so
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, he was like a little angel the whole time. I was like, man, that, that would have not been my story. Like there would at least have been screaming or, something,
yeah,
something going on that would have been totally, but no, it obviously like Mary was taking care of you. And it
yeah.
really was, it was a beautiful thing. I loved it so much. And your shop really does that just in general, I really feel like it does. The message is in the way that you run it. So I'm really impressed by all of it.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Well, praise God, seriously. It's, like, much protection, the Holy Spirit is amazing, so, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of that and all of your hard work with all of your products. And I I'm just thank you so much. And I love the St. Therese. I hadn't even connected that with your shop before, like the roses and the little way. And it really is, it's all intertwined. So thank you for sharing that. That's really cool.
Yes, yes, it's amazing. I mean, there's always these little moments where I'm like, "Oh, there's Saint Therese."
Yeah. That's awesome. I only have like one, well, no, that wasn't Saint Therese, but I did get like a flower in a really weird and strange way when I was praying about whether or not to marry my husband. A friend of mine cut it was like some kind of cabbage. She cut it the bottom of it off. And I had been praying, like, can I have a rose if I'm supposed to marry this guy? And she handed the bottom of the cabbage to me and she goes, doesn't this look like a white rose? And I just started screaming. I'm like, that's my rose. And she was like, really? The butt of a cabbage is your rose? But that would be the rose that I would get. So I
Yeah.
accepted it.
I love that. In the little ordinary things, you know?
Yeah.
Aw.